Okay, hold on, give me 1 second. I'm gonna make myself the spotlight video. Okay, give me 1 more second. First of all, it's so great to see everyone and be able to learn together, continue our learning together. And I want to thank Rabbi Shabtai for continuing to organize all these wonderful learning opportunities. Being that tonight is Yom Hashoah, I thought we would take an opportunity to learn from the Shalos Tshuvos Mimamakim from Ephraim Oshri and learn through the sugya of what is tshuvas. Obviously, these tshuvas are literally unimaginable, and that's why the source sheets that hopefully you all received from Rabbi Shabtai, and I'm happy to post for anyone who wants afterwards, but the title of the shir is Unimaginable Responsa from the Holocaust, because these questions are truly unimaginable. So what I want to do is I want to start with a question that was posed to Rav Oshri, where he was asked the following: B'yom vav mar cheshvan shnas tafshin beis yomim lifnei hachorbanan shel ghetto kavna. So it's the 6th day of Mar Cheshvan. It's a few days before the liquidation of the Kavna ghetto. Sha einenu huvlu kaseres alafim ish. Tens of thousands of people are dying. Anashim, nashim, v'taf, la'achriam, l'tevach, v'chol echad miyoshvei ghetto. Tzipa, l'kates, hamar, shezroa, harasha, shel hazedim, arurim, tonef ala, b'achzarios, v'tachriso mechaim, which is a nice way of saying this is unimaginable. The Nazis are doing horrific things to them, and they're going to murder all of them. Az b'shat trufazo, during this unimaginable time, ba'il bal habayis echad minechte ha'ir, yagua chaso v'dimaso alechav. So a guy comes to Rav Oshri, and he's got tears pouring down his face. Uberov sicho amar li ki nafsho hi b'sheilaso. And in the middle of the conversation, this is the question that he posed to Rav Oshri. Ki eichecha yuchal liros bara asher yimtza es mishpachto ishto uvanav uvnei vanav. How in the world he see his sons, his daughters, his wife, how can he watch his family be murdered right before his eyes? The Nazis didn't just murder the Jews, but Oshri says, the questioner, they took delight in murdering the Jews. In the way in which they drew joy from murdering Jews is they used to kill the children in front of the parents. And by doing so, they would magnify the amount of pain and suffering that a parent would feel. And therefore, Vesanashim Ba'aleim, and then they would kill the wife before the husband. Virak acharei shahayu mashbiim es zaz chamas harotzeach shebesocham. Right, only afterward, rak az hayu sholchim yadei beroshei hamishpacha. Only after killing all the children, only after killing the wife, only then would they actually kill the husband. Vilachein, says the question, Micheban she'ein bekocho mod bifnei yisurei hafashos ahuvos ve'yakaros lo mikol yakar. Says the questioner, I can't withstand, I can't sit there and watch my children, I can't sit there and watch my spouse be murdered in front of me. He says, my heart would, I'd die of a heart attack. I wouldn't be able to withstand it. I wouldn't be able to tolerate the unimaginable pain of watching my family be murdered in front of me. Lazos she'ela sohi. With that backdrop, here is the question. Imutter lo lekarev et kitzo v'lishloach yad benafsho. Is he allowed to kill himself? Is he allowed to cause himself to die to avoid seeing the rest of his family be murdered? Asher lo kadas u'bilvad shelo yereh be'einav be'avdam b'nei beso. Is he allowed to kill himself inappropriately simply so that he doesn't have to witness the murder of his family? V'nosaf lazehu atzmo lo yumas b'misas mishuna toch yisurin hagadol al yedei harotzchim. On top of that, in all likelihood, the Nazis wouldn't just kill him, but rather what would they do? They would mutilate him. In this way, if he kills himself, if he kills himself, at least he'll be able to have a proper Jewish burial. Ad Khan, up until now, is the question that was posed to Rav Ephraim Oshri in the Kovna ghetto in the last days of the ghetto. Now, anytime, I always point out that you review the halachos and you review these types of shalos chuvas from the Holocaust, before you even get to the answer, what's to me more impressive, if not more impressive, is the question itself. You have to picture yourself, put yourself in that time and place, and wonder to yourself, would you have asked that type of a shaila from Rav Oshri? Would you have had the mindset, the wherewithal, the mindfulness to come and to ask a shaila? Because even in that moment in time, you want to do things kedasu kedin. What's also striking about the shaila is you feel the emotion pulsating through the tshuva that Rav Oshri is writing as recorded from this question. You feel the pain, the anguish that this person is feeling, that on the one hand, he can't imagine taking his own life. On the other hand, he simply can't imagine watching the lives of his children and his wife be taken from him. And so he wants to know, is mutter for him to kill himself rather than fall to the hands of the Nazis? And he says, I'll even make you an argument for why it's halakhically beneficial for me to kill myself. But at least if I kill myself, I'll have a proper Jewish burial. What's going to happen if the Nazis get their hands on me? Where's my body going to reside? At least this way, if nothing else, I'll be given a proper Jewish burial. These are the types of shilas that Rav Oshri was being asked. And to be honest, I have a new appreciation for these types of shilas because as I've been watching Rabbi Schechter and Rabbi Willig and Rabbi Schweiss and all the great poskim in our generation, paskin some really, really challenging shilas surrounding coronavirus, it gives you just a little bit, a shemetz of an insight into the emotional toll that it takes, not simply on the person asking the question, but also poskim that have to have the question, have to weigh the question, the different sides, both halacha, the emotional component to it, an issue of psak halacha. And by the way, these psak halachas are not, if I get them wrong, so the fork, which I thought was kosher, wasn't really kosher. These are the difference between suicide and doing something perhaps might even be virtuous, as we saw through the eyes of the questioner. So to begin examining this from a halachic perspective, again, I tried to frame it in the context of the Holocaust, but to begin to define this and describe this a little bit in the halachic context, so it's important to recognize in source number 2 here, Bereshis, the 9th chapter, Pasuk Hey, the Pasuk says, "Va'aches dimchem lenafshosechem edrosh miyad chaya edroshenu, umiyad ha'adam miyad ish achiv edrosh es nefesh ha'adam." The Pasuk essentially says, Hashem tells us that I'm going to hold you accountable for your souls. I'm going to take you to task for souls that were lost. And from there, Chazal learn the prohibition of ma'abed atzmo l'das, the prohibition of committing suicide. Now, the Medrash and source 4 offers a very important qualification to this. The Medrash says, lest you think all cases of suicide categorically wrong, says the Medrash, you have the word ach here. The word ach is lahavi esachonek atzmo. Yachol kishaul, I may think that suicide categorically is wrong, but what about Shaul? Tamalomar ach. From the pasuk ach, it teaches me that Shaul is an exception to the rule. Yachol kechanani Mishael ve'Azariah. I might think that all suicide is categorically wrong, but what about Hanani, Mishael, and Azariah? The story in Daniel, where they allowed themselves to be thrown into the fiery pit, fiery furnace. Talmud Lomar ach. And so the Medrash says that while in general the case is that suicide is wrong, there are exceptions to the rule. In the 2 exceptions that the Medrash highlights is Shaul HaMelech, which source number 3 we'll see in a second, and Hanani, Mishael, Azariah, when Nebuchadnezzar asks them, tells the world essentially to bow down to an idol of him, Hanani, Mishael, and Azariah say, no, we're not doing it. and they choose voluntarily, even though it was not avodah zarah, they choose voluntarily to have themselves into the fiery furnace. What's the case of Shaul? The case of Shaul is all the way at the end of Shmuel Aleph. You have the psukim there, the last psukim of Shmuel, where Shaul recognizes the Plishtim are charging up. He recognizes what's about to happen to him. Pasuk Dalid, Vayomer Shaul enose kelav. Shaul says to his trusted sidekick, Shalof charbecha v'takrini ba, pen yavo harelima elu dekaruni v'yisalalu bi. Take this sword and kill me, lest these ingrates come. And do you know what they're going to do if they get a hold of my body? Do you know what they're going to do to me if they get a hold of me? But the sidekick says, nice, Shaul. I'm not doing this. I'm not the king. Vayikach Shaul asacherev. So Shaul do. He takes his sword, vayipol aleha, and he falls on the sword. And so the Medrash itself tells us that there are two exceptions to this rule of suicide. That while in general it tells us that suicide is prohibited, we know the cases of Hanan and Mishael Nazariah. We know the case of Shaul, and those are two cases where it is going to be permissible. Where else do we see these types of cases come up? Look in page source number 5, Avodah Zarah, the very famous Gemara of Rav Chananya ben Trajan. And of course, Rav Chananya ben Trajan is sitting there, he's learning Gemara one day, he's teaching Torah, he has a Sefer Torah, and the Romans come and they want none of it. And so they burn, they wrap him in the Torah scroll. We know the story, we read about it on Tisha B'Av, and they wrap him in the Torah scroll and they light on fire. Amrulo Talmidav. And say to Rabbi Ma Taroeh, as Rav Chananya ben Trajan is sitting there burning to death, his students say to him, Rebbe, what do you see? The very famous words, he says, Amr lahem gilyo nisrafim va'osios porchos. I see that the parchment is on fire, but the letters are ascending up to the heavens. Afata pesach piach vatikanes b'cha. His students say to him, maybe Rebbe, open up your mouth and let the fire come in. It'll hasten your death. It'll put you out of pain a little bit quicker. Amar lahen, Rebbe says, Rav Chananya ben Trajan, mutav she'itlena misha nasna v'al yachbol hu ba'atzma. It's better that the one who gave me life takes me life, namely Hashem. In other words, when Hashem decides to take my life, that's when I'll die. V'al yachbol hu ba'atzmo, but chas v'shalom, says Rav Chananya ben Trajan, that a Jew should take his own life. Says the Ritva on this very. The Ritva says, Asu b'Gilyonei HaTosfos. We have sourced in the Gilyonei HaTosfos. Shahaya Omer Rabbeinu Tam, that Rabbeinu Tam would say, Dehecha shemisyare shelo yachrichuhu la'avor al das, mut lachbol ba'atzmo. That if a person is afraid that essentially they'll give in, shemisyare shelo yachrichuhu la'avor al das, that when the non-Jews come and they try to convince you to convert to other religions, or when they persecute you, and you say to yourself, I'm not going to be able to withstand that level of persecution, says Rabbeinu Tam, mutter lachbol ba'atzmo. It's mutter to take your life. Now it happens to be, and I wrote about this in the first Yadrim, you can look at my article there, but in other places it's quoted in various comments of Rabbeinu Tam, not just that it's mutter, but that it's a mitzvah. We won't get into that right now. But says the Ritva, 4 lines up from the bottom, something amazing. He says, if that's the case, right? In other words, what is the Ritva, quoting Rabbeinu Tam, essentially say? That it's mutter to take your own life if you're afraid of what the consequences are going to be. If you're afraid of what's going to happen to you should the non-Jews get their hands on you, then it's mutter to take your life. Says the Ritva at the end. Umikan lomdin. And from here we learn. Lishchot hane'arim bigzeros mipnei havaras hadas. It's okay to kill children rather than giving them over to non-Jews. That it's okay to kill children. Listen to the comment of the Ritva. He says, if you take Rabbeinu Tam to the next level, it to its next logical step, it's okay to kill children rather than giving them over to those who are going to convert them to other religions. Says the Ritva, Ad kan matzasi b'Gilyonei HaTosfos. Up until now, I find in the words of the Gilyonei HaTosfos, V'heim dvarim shetzrichim Talmud v'iyun gadol. The Ritva, in very, how should I say, vicious language. These words need Talmud gadol. In other words, don't just accept them at first blush, but we need to really think about these words. We need to think about the halakha surrounding these words, and we need to think about the implications of these words. Ella, however, says the Ritva, Shekvar Horazakin, who am I to argue with Rabbeinu Tam? Now, it's important to recognize the geographic differences between Rabbeinu Tam and the Ritva. Obviously, the Ritva lives later than Rabbeinu Tam, right? So he's after the time of Rabbeinu Tam. But more important, Rabbeinu Tam is living what we colloquially refer to as Ashkenaz, and the Ritva is referring to what we would colloquially refer to as Sfarad. Ashkenazi Jewry, where Rabbeinu Tam was writing, was much more impacted by the Crusades, much more impacted by pogroms than Jews living in Arab lands, which ironically and counterintuitively in historical context, lived with much more religious freedom and much more comfort than those who were living in Ashkenaz. So it makes sense that Tam would be writing about these in the words that he's writing. It would make sense that the Ritva would have a more difficult time understanding and empathizing, so to speak, with what Rabbeinu Tam was writing. Says the Ritva at the end, V'shamanu b'shem gedolei tzfarat, she'itiru kein halach l'maisa. He says, I heard from rabbis in Sfarat, in Ashkenaz, that they actually paskined like this comment of Rabbeinu Tam. And so Rabbeinu Tam says that if you're nervous about being over to the non-Jews and what that's going to mean for you, you're allowed to give your life over. That means that it's okay for us to give over children. I'm sorry, to murder children. Think about this. To murder children rather than giving them over to non-Jews. In the Ritva, again, you sense his reticence. You sense his hesitancy in his comment, where he says, right, Shedvarim Tzrichim Iyun Gadol. We can't just, but I heard in Ashkenaz that they actually paskin like this. Now, where does Tosfos actually say that? So if you look in Tosfos and Machseches Gittin, the very famous story, again, we read about this on Tisha B'Av, but it's the story of the 400 boys and girls that were taken captive from Yerushalayim, and they're being brought over to Rome. And needless to say, the Gemara is very well aware that these 400 children are not being brought to Rome to play basketball, and they're not being brought to Rome to do coding on their computers, but rather they were being brought to Rome for very, very nefarious purposes. And so what do? Instead, they jump off the boat, a basketball comes out and says, you guys did the right thing. Says Tosfos, how can you say they did the right thing? These children committed suicide. They jumped off the boat. They killed themselves rather than being killed at the hands of the Romans. So asks Tosfos in source number 7, wait a second. How could they have killed themselves? Didn't we learn in source number 5, the Gemara Zara Daf Yud Ches Amud Aleph, where Rav Chananya ben Trajon says it's better for God to take your life rather than you take your life, even if that's going to be unimaginable pain and suffering. And so Tosfos, how do you reconcile these two Gemaras? Says Tosfos, Hacha, our case of the Gemara in Gittin, where the 400 children overboard, Yireim Hayu Miyasu. In other words, it's not just that they were afraid to die, but they were nervous of Yisurin. They were nervous of the torture that they were going to be put through before they were going to be murdered. Kid de Amrinan, as we learned, Ilmale Nagdu Chanani Mishav Azariah, Palchu L'Tzalma. Right? Now, and he brings it from the case of Chanani Mishav and Azariah. Ve'od, and furthermore, said Tosfos, De Alkain Hayu Me'anin Osam, Velo Hayu Horgin Osam. Says Tosfos that they weren't going to murder them at all. What were they going to do? very bad things to them. So says Tosfos, even though we might think there's a stira between the Gemara in Avodah Zarah and the Gemara in Gittin, says Tosfos, the Gemara in Gittin is different. Because the Gemara in Gittin is where they were going to face such unimaginable hardship, such unimaginable pain and suffering, they wouldn't be able to stand that. Therefore, that's why there was a. Therefore, that's why it was okay for them to kill themselves. Now, as we saw, this is Tosos Shitasam. This makes sense. This is following the opinion of Rabbeinu Tam that's quoted in the Ritva, where the Ritva quotes Rabbeinu Tam as saying, Mutter lachbo ba'atzmo, where it's permissible for a person to kill himself. And now the Tosfos in Maseches Gittin is giving us a little bit more of context, a little bit more of an understanding of it. It's because you're afraid of Yisurim. It's because you're afraid of almost the alternative, like what's going to happen alongside instead of being put to death. If you look on page number 3, it's number 8, the Das Canaan quotes an unbelievable Maisarav, really, like literally an unbelievable Maisarav. And the Maisarav is as follows. He's a Maisa Birav Echad, Sheshach Harbe Tinokos Bishas Hashmad, Ki Hayayare Sheyaviram Aldas. Wow. That there was a Rebbe who killed his students in a time of persecution because he was afraid that they would be converted to other religions. Right? Just pause for a second. Again, whenever you do tshuvas, it's important not to only get caught up in the halachic kusha, but it's important to process emotionally what these were. That there was a maisa of a Rebbe who murdered innocent children because he was afraid that they would be given over to other religions. The Hayarav Echad Imo, there's another Rebbe alongside with him. The Hayakoe Salav, he was furious at this Rebbe. V'karu Rotzeach, he called him a murderer. V'hu lo hayachoshe. The Amar Oso Rav im Kedivrei Yaharego so. Rav Oso Rav b'misa mishuna. He says, he says, if anyone follows this Rav, so basically, right, this Rav should die a terrible death because of what he did. Right? Va'amar oso Rav im kedivrei yahareg oso Rav b'misa mishuna. Right? If he dies, right, I should die a difficult death. V'chein haya shetasu akum v'hayu povshtin oro v'nosnin chol bein ha'or v'abasar. That's exactly what happened. This Rebbe died a very difficult death. They skinned off his skin. V'achar kach nisbat lahagzeh v'im lo shachar osan hatinokos hayin itztola. Horrible, horrible. But that seems to be exactly what Rabbeinu Tam was paskening. Right? This Rebbe seems to be paskening like the opinion of Rabbeinu Tam. That if you're nervous that they're going to be converted, if you're nervous about what the alternative is, then you can actually kill them to prevent that. And you see that there were other Rebbeim at the time that were saying, are you out of your mind? Are you crazy killing innocent children? How can you contemplate that? How could Allah ever allow for that? And so you see the two sides almost playing themselves out. Now, if you paskin against this, if you can't imagine a scenario like this, you have to understand why Shaul HaMelech was different. So the Yam Shel Shlomo Baba Kama explains that perhaps Shaul HaMelech was different because he was a king. In other words, he didn't just represent himself, he represented the people. And think about a morale buster it would have been had the Plishtim gotten their hands on Shaul. Shaul wasn't just thinking about himself, he was thinking about the implications of his being captured, because what would it have done to the morale of the people? What would it have done to the morale of the people if Shaul HaMelech was captured, right? So he says, V'gam efsher mishum kavod HaMelech, right? Out of kavod HaMelech, David says, it's better that I kill myself, even though it's quote unquote against halakha, but it's better that I kill myself rather than the indignity of Israel seeing their king being taken captive. And again, as we've seen, worse than taken captive, of what would happen to him once he was taken. Now, there are other tshuva that discuss this. For example, source number 10, the Rosh, deals with what do you do with someone who commits suicide? Are you allowed to sit shiva for them? Are you allowed to mourn for them? Says the B'Samim Rosh again, it's a whole sugya and halacha. We're not going to get into the gritty of it now, but I just want to share it with you because I want to share with you the sides of how the halacha plays out. But the B'Samim Rosh says, Amar be'ikar hanidon chalila ladonas ha'isha zelara. How can you cast aspersions on someone who does something? Right? Of course, someone who would do something like that, it's either because they were in such unimaginable pain or that they did tshuva right before they died. So says the B'Samim Rosh, chalila ladonas ha'isha zelara, chas v'shalom, to attribute rishus to a person who kills themselves because it must be, says the B'Samim Rosh, that they were in levels of pain that you and I could simply never contemplate. Levels of pain that you and I simply would not be able to fathom. And therefore he says, nafsho kilo yuchal laseis. He couldn't bear the pain anymore. Ve'af kizel l'shomer atzmo min hachet shekol atzaros v'aros v'gam ma'oni ma'avirin oso adam al das atzmo ve'al das kono. It must be that all this pain, all this suffering drove him, right? Ma'avirin adam al das atzmo. That's what drove him to do something so incomprehensible, like taking his life. Now, if you look in source number 11, Shuvas Chassam Sofer says, I don't understand our whole topic. It's very nice, Rabbeinu Tam, that you say that a person's allowed to. It's very nice, Rabbeinu Tam, that you say that that even if it means killing children to prevent them from falling into the hands of the non-Jews. But says the Chassam Sofer, I don't understand. What do you do with the Gemara of Hanan ben Trajon? Again, Rav Hanan ben Trajon is sitting there. He's in incredible pain. He's literally being burned to death. And his students say to him, Rebbe, why don't you open your mouth and hasten your death just a little bit, just a tiny bit. And Rav Hanan ben Trajon says, no dice. I'm not going to do it. Mutav, it's better that the one who gave me life takes my life than for me to have any hand in it at all. Says the Chassam Sofer, I don't understand. V'tzei ulamad me Rav Hanan ben Trajon. Why don't you go and learn from Rav Hanan ben Trajon? Who in pain more than Rav Hanan ben Trajon? He was literally being burned at the stake. He was on fire. He was in so much pain. Umitaso tovlo mechayav. And it's very clear at that point in time that death had been much more preferable than life. Sherei has spiku, latour, Shakira misasa look shall smooth, right? Semer, right? Again, they were doing all these unimaginable things to him. Mikoma, says the Chassam Sofer. Nonetheless, hu atzmolo pasach piv sheyakanes bo harad, right? He refused to open up his mouth if it meant him dying just a second earlier. The amar mutav sheyet leno misha nasna ve'al yash v'yashlichu hu ba'atzmo ve'yash something ve'al yashlit hu ba'atzmo. Despite the fact that he's in so much pain, he says, I simply won't take my life. And so you have differing opinions. Again, we're examining this through the eyes of Rav Oshri. Remember, we started, for those who joined late, we started with this unimaginable shaila that was asked to Rav Oshri. A person wants to kill themselves rather than seeing their family be murdered first. And the questioner comes to Rav Oshri and says, what should I do? Am I allowed to kill myself to avoid me having to witness the death of my children and of my wife? And so we see it's not so simple. Because on the one hand, the Pasuk in Bereshis tells us that suicide is asur. On the other hand, the Medrash quickly jumps in and says, well, it's asur, though. There are exceptions. For example, Hanan, Mishael, and Azariah. For example, Shaul. And then we saw that there are different Gemaras. You have Hanan ben Trajon, who, despite being in unimaginable pain, refuses to commit suicide. And the Chassam Sofer says, look at the example of Hanan ben Trajon and see that even if you're in such incredible levels of pain, you can't kill yourself. You're not allowed to commit suicide. On the other hand, you have this I don't want to say strange, this incredible Rabbeinu Tam brought down in the Ritva, in the Gemara in Gittin, where the Rabbeinu Tam says, yeah, if you're nervous about the alternative, if you're nervous about what's going to happen to these children when they fall into the hands of the non-Jews, then yeah, it's okay to kill yourself. It's okay to kill yourself. In the Rabbeinu Tam, Tosfos says, you want to know what our proof is? Our proof is the Gemara in Gittin. 400 young boys and girls jumped off a boat they committed suicide rather than being brought to Rome. And a Baskol came out and said, these children merited the world to come. Says Rabbeinu Tam, isn't that proof? Isn't that proof enough that it was okay? And so the poskim throughout history, literally from the time of the Medrash on, are struggling with these Gemaras. And how do you reconcile? So let's pause for, I'll give you 2 seconds. You are Rav Ephraim Oshri. What do you paskin halacha l'maisa? Right? If paskin that he can commit suicide, and you're wrong, by the way, then you encourage someone to commit suicide, one of the worst averas, right? A bad avera. Okay. If, on the other hand, you tell him not to, think about the implications of that. You're telling a man that he has to witness his children, his wife being murdered in front of him. He's going to lose his mind. He's going to have a heart attack, right? What do you do? So I'll quote for you the end of Rav Oshri's Tshuva, page number 5. Rav Oshri quotes the Chasam Sofer that I just quoted for you. And he says in the last 3 lines of the first paragraph, well, it says source number 1, but it's not. It's really the last source, but it's page number 5. Rav Oshri writes the following: Ve'ein lecha meitzar yoser, mimisha nisrav chayim. He says, if you look at the Chasam Sofer's understanding of Rav Chanan ben Trajan, there's no greater pain than a person burned alive. V'af al pichein lo ratzar Rav Chanan ben Trajan liftoach haspiv, and despite that, Rav Chanan ben Trajan did not want to open his mouth ulakari ves misaso, and to hasten his death. Right? He refused to do it. So that's Rav Oshri. That's where we catch up with Rav Oshri at the end of his truth. It says Ulam Shalomar, but despite the fact that that was the reading of the Chasam Sofer into Hanan ben Trajan, Ulam Ef Shalomar Sherav Hanan ben Trajan Hichmir Atzmo B'Yo Pimidas. In other words, maybe Rav Hanan ben Trajan acting in the letter of the law. Maybe he was acting lifnei mishra sadin. He was taking on a chumrah to himself. Just because he takes on a chumrah to himself doesn't mean that you and I have to do that. Doesn't mean that the Jews in the Kovna Ghetto and the Warsaw Ghetto and the time of the Holocaust have to do that also, right? Maybe that's not considered suicide. And says Rav Oshri, the proof of that would be Shaul HaMelech. Shaul HaMelech killed himself to avoid the alternative. So again, it's all balancing the different opinions back and forth. Still, he says, 3rd paragraph. Zos, nonetheless, and here, to me, this is the most beautiful part of the tshuva. Nira li shelafarsein barabim kipsak halacha shemanido didan. Mutter lo la'adam la'aved atzmo ladas. Despite the fact, he says, that I think that it might be okay to actually be ma'aved ladas. Despite the fact that I think it might be okay to do it, to publicize that, that, he says, certainly is forbidden. Why? Because if you do that, you give a victory to the Nazis. If you publicize that it's okay to kill yourself because the Nazis are tormenting you so much, then you've given a moral victory to the Nazis. Because they would make fun of the Jews about why the Jews weren't killing themselves. And if all of a sudden it become publicized that the Jews were killing themselves, that they were so afraid, that they were living in such fear that Jews en masse were committing suicide, he said that would be the biggest chil Hashem imaginable. Because this would show because it would show lack of emunah. It would show a lack of faith that Hashem would save the Jews from the hands of the horrible Nazis. They wanted to put in an attitude of yesh, wanted to make you give up. They wanted to make us forget any hope whatsoever. So he says, on the one hand, I want to tell you it's mutter. On the other hand, it's definitely prohibited to publicize this heter. Because if you publicize this heter, think of what it's going to do to the morale of the Jewish people. Think of what victory it's going to give to the Nazis. And therefore, he says, "Va'amnam yesh l'tzayin kan begaon, ki lo hayu begeto kama mikre ived uladas zula shlosha anashim sharucham nafla irbam." He says it's important to point out that in the Covenant ghetto, many Jews, most Jews, not commit suicide. Just 2 or 3, he says. Aval yeser yoshvei ghetto haminu be'emuna shlema, but the majority believe with emuna shlema. Kilo yitosh Hashem esamo v'yomar lamashchis dai, that Hashem would never forget his people, that he would tell the murderers it's enough. Kulam haminu bebias haMashiach v'chol yom chich sheyavo. Everyone believed in Mashiach, and they believed to the end Mashiach would actually come. So you see here, and this is why I love this tshuva, because there's obviously a halacha of it, there's the lumdus of it, right? You see weighing different opinions back and forth. But to me, his response is so intuitive, so psychologically intuitive, and it's aware not just of what the strict halacha is, but how halacha plays out once it's given over to the people, right? And so while he says, I can find you sources for why it is that this is mutter, he says to publicize, that I can never accept. That I can never understand. Because if you do that, you give that moral victory to the Nazis. You let the Nazis know that they win because they didn't just want to murder us, but they wanted to cause us to give up all hope altogether. And so therefore, Rav Oshri finishes the tshuva and says that while I was asked this shaila, it's important to realize that the majority of Jews held steadfast in their amunah in Hashem, that the majority of Jews remained defiant that Mashiach was going to come. They never had yesh. They always had that sense of hope. So to summarize, we started off with really this unimaginable responsa, this unimaginable tshuva time of the Holocaust, asked for Oshri. We analyzed it from all the sources, everything from the pasuk to the story of Shaul, to Rav Chanan ibn Trajon, to the 400 boys and girls. We saw Tosfos' opinion, this wild approach of Tosfos, that it's mutter, that it's okay to kill yourself rather than face the alternative. We saw Chassam Sofer didn't like that very much. We saw that other Rabbanim didn't like so much. We saw the Ritva, who was very reticent about that type of a tshuva. And lastly, we saw how Rav Oshri took all of these sources, all of these halachic which spanned a millennium, brought them together, issues a psak halacha, but does so with an awareness of what that psak halacha means and how it plays out, so to speak, amongst the amcha, and what the implications of his psak halacha as well. And so we get a little bit of a taste of the emunah of the Jews, of the faith of the Jews in the time of the Covenant ghetto. We get a little bit of a taste of the weightiness that poskim in the time of the ghetto had, right? What it meant for them to be paskening these shilas. And lastly, we saw exactly how Rav Oshri issued this psak. And with this, hopefully, we go into Yom Hashoah with an appreciation, not just nowadays for the Rabbanim that have to paskin these shilas, but we come into Yom Hashoah with an appreciation of the spiritual resistance of the Jews during the most horrific time ever known to mankind. Hopefully, I gave us a little Torah, but also a little bit of understanding as we come into Yom HaShoah.